So I saw someone post on Twitter a few days ago, Egypt for Palestine, and they post this picture of the Palestinian flag projected onto a pyramid in Egypt, and it is a virtue signal of the highest order, where Egypt is saying, look how much we show solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. It is quite frankly nauseating to see this fake sympathy and fake solidarity. I mean, we already know that we have this in existence in the anti-Israel camp. I won't even call it pro-Palestinian because it's just anti-Israel. That's all that flag represents, quite frankly. It's never been about genuine national self-determination. Where are they with their sympathy and solidarity and protests for the far higher death tolls and far greater tragedies and heinous crimes that exist throughout the Arab world and the Muslim world? Think about this, the death tolls, hundreds of thousands into the millions even, in the Syrian civil war, Sudanese civil war, over 1 million Uyghur Muslims in China that are in concentration camps. Nope, don't care about that. But when the one and only Jewish state engages in a just war to protect herself and recover hundreds of hostages, nope, that's unacceptable, despite it being the most surgically precise military operation ever seen in the history of urban warfare. Oh well, but I just had to point out the hypocrisy here. It is so sickening and so absurd, and something we need to delve into and really think about, because Israel is as Douglas Murray said, is forced to deal with the insolvable problem, which frankly isn't hers to deal with. The issue of the Palestinians, the so-called Palestinians, the Arabs living in these territories, inability to have peaceful relations with the Jewish state, and Egypt is given no responsibility whatsoever, the rest of the Arab world no responsibility whatsoever, and they just have these virtue signaling gestures like this. But let's have a look at this. This is the Egyptian border with Gaza. Look at that. I'm going to press play, and here you can see that it is absolutely clear that Egypt has no solidarity whatsoever with the people of Gaza. They don't want them in there. So they can blast their projectors on the screens, but they're not interested in giving in aid, in taking in people, which would be the most obvious way in order to deal with this issue for Israel to clear out Hamas, and those who don't want to be in the line of fire can get away and escape. But no, Egypt don't care, and the world has no question of responsibility towards Egypt. They're not interested. It's all down to Israel, who are meant to be supplying the enemy in a time of war. Well, you've got to care about the civilians. Well, excuse me. Our civilians are who we have to care for, and the vast majority of the civilians are in some way complicit with Hamas, given their overwhelming support for Hamas, which we're seeing from recent polling. Many people who might not be described as part of Hamas could be enabling them by teaching kids to be martyrs, by raising kids to be martyrs. Terrorists, really. I'm not even going to honor them with such a name as martyrs, by hiding weapons in their houses, by taking hostages, by helping hostages, by all these things, helping things in the culture in order to help Hamas. But quite frankly, it is for the people of Gaza, the government of Gaza, to protect their citizens. And while Israel should do all they can, you can't tell Israel you have to supply Gaza with all this aid when it's going to get to Hamas. It can't be Israel's responsibility to feed an enemy territory. This is not part of Israel. And so it is absurd that the world doesn't turn around and say, oh, hold on one second. Well, what about Egypt, which is not directly involved in this war? And what about Egypt, they're meant to be Arab brothers to their neighbors in Gaza? And nope, they are devoid of any responsibility whatsoever. It's not that Israel wants war. Goodness me, far from it. It's not that Israel wants any of this. All Israel's ever wanted is peaceful relations. But now that we are in this state that they've come to attack us, our focus, our responsibility is to deal with the security threat, to get rid of that, and to recover our hostages, not to supply an enemy territory. No one would ever expect something like that in the way we fought, let's say, the Nazis. To be supplying them, it's absurd. We don't want death and destruction, but we know that by supplying, why should that be our responsibility? It's just going to actually elongate the war, which harms everyone on all sides. I'm not even saying necessarily here that aid should be it's not that we don't think aid should be getting in there, even though you could make the case for that in order to speed up the war and get it over with, because it's only getting into the hands of Hamas. But even if you don't want to make that case, why are you saying that it's got to be Israel? I want to show you a clip of Einat Wilf, who is talking to me on JTV just a few days ago, where she talks about this very specific point about Egypt and the fact that we, Israel, should not be... And she talks about the fact that Israel should not be expected on any moral level to be doing the supplying of aid to an enemy territory. And quite frankly, Egypt have questions to answer. Have a watch.
It has elongated the war in the clearest sense by us supplying our enemy at a time of war. On the first day, we should have said, we're sorry, we made a mistake. We thought we could work with the people of Gaza. We thought that we could have Qatari money go in. We thought that they really just wanted to manage the welfare of their people. We were wrong. All our goodwill went into them weaponizing Gaza. So we're done. This is enemy territory. We're closing the borders completely. They have a border with Egypt. Another place where our leadership has been completely delinquent is in what I call the disappearing border with Egypt. There's a border with Egypt. Call it out. Say, we're not starving the people of Gaza. There's a border with Egypt. Egypt is welcome to supply them. It clearly supplied them generously with weapons and materials for the last few years. So we're closing our borders. We're going to war against Palestinianism until Palestinianism is defeated, and nothing goes in until the hostages come out. I know it's been almost 10 months. I still am horrified that we normalize the idea that you can go into people's beds, invade a country, occupy it, butcher people, kidnap them from their beds, and then the country that was invaded needs to negotiate with you for their release. And everyone's like, yeah, just, go to Doha, go to Paris, and negotiate. The message should have been, nothing goes in until the hostages come out. Burden of proof is on you. Hamas represents you. You want to show us that it doesn't represent you? Bring back the hostages. We're not negotiating. In what world is this like a negotiating situation? So, yes.
Absolutely. She is so right about this. By the way, if you want to watch the full thing, the video is called I Was Wrong, Hamas Does Represent Palestinians, Dr. Einat Wilf, which is on JTV. We posted it just a few days ago. And the key point she makes is actually that Joe Biden, President Biden, said when he flew to Israel, he said, let's be clear, Hamas does not represent Palestinians. And she says, Netanyahu should have responded by saying, actually, yes, they do. And that's part of the problem. And this is one of the fundamental problems that are creating these false narratives in this war, the confusion in this war. If you tell them that it's just Hamas we're going after, and much of the world will say, yeah, I get it, you've got to go against Hamas, but why are you hurting the people? I don't get it. Now, let's be clear, Israel has been so surgically precise in this war, but we should be clear that this is a problem not just with Hamas, but that the majority of the population support Hamas. And so we didn't say we're going against the Luftwaffe when we fought Nazi Germany. This is a war against a people. This is not calling for the end of this people, but it's saying that we're going to war against a people who have an ideology that is Nazi-esque in nature. And I'm not talking about every single person, but the vast majority according to polling. And therefore, the expectation of how Israel should conduct this war and the terms through which she conducts this war should be very clear. If it was, Hamas are in control and they won by coup and not the consent of the people, and that all the people, the vast majority of them, absolutely detest Hamas and they feel trapped and they hate it and all the rest of it. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And therefore, this idea of supplying aid to this enemy territory where civilians are holding the hostages, it is unacceptable. And we should have broken that narrative, as Einat Wilf says, from the very start. But you know what? It's never too late. And it's not just opinion that's making this point. This is what recent polling is telling us from Arabs in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, as it is called. This is what it tells us. The recent polling, just done recently, June, and they've done it before in March and in December, and just look it up. I think it's called the Palestinian Center for Survey or something like that. You'll find it. It's all there. It's very clear. And it's not just the polling even, it's from first-hand testimony to first-hand accounts of the hostages, of soldiers who are going in there and they're seeing that it's everywhere, this modern-day Nazi-esque worldview. So we should be completely unequivocal in stating these truths and calling out the nonsense that we're seeing, like with this Egypt stands in solidarity. It's faux, it's fake. And Egypt should be held to account for, at the very least, double talk. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.